This is marathon number 5 for me, but it's the first time I'm training as a full-time coach, hosting workshops across the country, and trying to chase my dream of running a Boston qualifier time. I've mapped out a 20-week training plan, but let's be honest here, life is going to test that. With travel, work, and all the chaos in between, I've had to build this training plan a little differently this time. So in this video, I'll walk you through how I'm approaching my training for the Melbourne Marathon, what's changed, what I'm learning so far, and why it's more important than just crossing the finishing line for me. I'll first start off with the 20-week training plan. So again, was looking very similar to my Tokyo Marathon training build, aiming to do 6 runs per week and 2 strength training sessions. In terms of mileage, wanting to bump that up a little more, obviously having to run faster, so think I was going to aim for a peak week of around 115 to 120 kilometers, but compared to marathons 2, 3, and 4, my new job as a head coach of the Indigenous Marathon Project really has thrown a different kind of approach that I'm needing to take for Marathon 5 training. The reason why I've chosen to do a 20-week training build is because of the national workshops that I host as part of the project. So flying in our 12 squad members to run milestone events as they work up to run the New York City Marathon later this year. So I have got an additional 3 workshops that I need to host before New York, which will require me to actually take some time off of training. So I'm using each individual workshop to almost create my own training blocks here. Now, I'll work up to a certain distance, and again, I haven't really locked in where I'm going to be peaking or at what distances, but rather using that 7, sometimes 4, sometimes 8-week blocks to be my training, because when I get to the workshops, obviously my focus is on the squad and supporting them to run their milestone distances as well too. So really won't have the time during the week to get any runs in, besides a few shakeout runs. And with the associated travel with my job, I'm finding that the original 20-week training plan that I built myself really is just a guide, but it's changing almost week in, week out due to various factors like my own energy levels, commitment to additional external events after hours, and also making sure to support that squad with their own training. So this is the first marathon training plan walkthrough where I'm not going to share the entire plan because it's changing literally every week for me, but I will include it in the Jack Runs Hub Notion page template down in the description below. I've completed 4 weeks so far, but I've got a tentative roadmap of what my next lot of training will look like, but as I go through training, we'll update that accordingly. Going into training considerations now, obviously moving up from Melbourne to Canberra, working full time here, training conditions are a lot colder as well too. So when I actually head back down to Melbourne to run it, we'll find that it'll be a lot warmer than what I'm used to training in, but I'm hoping this will be a good chance to get a real solid winter/Arctic training block under the belt. My work schedule is arguably the biggest consideration I've had to factor in for the Melbourne Marathon training because, as I've said, during peak periods, I'm working quite a lot of after hours, early hours, especially in workshops, which are 7 days long. There's going to be times where I actually can't physically fit in my training runs because I'll just burn out completely, and I've had moments and glimpses of almost burning out in these first few weeks. My final consideration is around the original goal for running Melbourne Marathon, which was obviously to set a Boston qualifier time. Now, as I continue further into my job and supporting 12 incredible people along their journeys to run their first ever marathon, I'm finding more and more as my schedule shifts, changes, and my priorities in a way go to them, understand that running Melbourne may just be my first opportunity to see how close I am to running a Boston qualifier time and not putting myself under so much pressure to perform on the day either. So in a way, my internal motivations for running a marathon have also changed over this little period so far. Going into some reflections on how training is going so far, I have just finished week 4 as of today. So I started off week 1 hitting 83 kilometers for the week, finding my body was attuned quite well to the mileage that I put it under. I think I struggled mostly with my Wednesday midweek long run, before deciding to actually scrap my original tempo run session to just an easy run to let myself actually adjust again to marathon training. Week 2 was quite an interesting one where I experienced my first niggle with my sesamoid bone as well. It got to the point where it just felt like I was walking and running on a bruised bone there. So decided to opt for a couple of cross training sessions and adding some extra strength training in to really let it settle before building back up for week 3. I think I only averaged around 23 Ks for week 2, but luckily was able to pick right back up when it came to starting my week 3 training. Week 3 was all back to normal and I managed to actually run 7 days in a row for the first time ever, which I was really proud of. My biggest highlight for that training week was my 3 by 8 minutes at marathon pace, finding I was able to hold a consistent pace for those 3 individual 8-minute slots. And I've just finished off week 4 of training and have actually managed to run an additional 7 days in a row. So my current running streak is 14 days in a row and hit 93 kilometers for my mileage this week. Biggest highlight for week 4 was actually my long run yesterday. So managed to do my first 30k long run for the build, actually deciding to run the final 4 kilometers at marathon pace, which I was able to hold on to. So while still very early on in my training, it's very reassuring to see that my confidence is slowly building, holding the 4:08 per kilometer pace that I'm hoping to achieve for the marathon distance. It's funny, living in Melbourne for the last 10 years and suddenly moving up to Canberra, deciding, okay, I'll run Melbourne this year is quite an interesting scenario to be in. Ideally, I was hoping to have run Berlin to be my 4th world major, but I'm now 0 for 2 trying to get through in the lottery. I did get an invite from Abbott's World Majors, who also do their own version of the lottery, having run 3 world majors now, but there was a realization that Berlin is the Sunday before my 4th workshop with the IMP squad, where they will be running their 30-kilometer selection event. So traveling from Berlin to Alice Springs in the space of 12 hours probably wasn't quite achievable. So putting the squad first there for this year. Obviously, the biggest motivator to run Melbourne this year was to have a crack at running a Boston qualifier attempt. And as I've continued to support the squad during their training, I'm finding myself lacing up more and more because of them. For some, during our 3-kilometer tryout selection event, that was the furthest they'd ever run. But now suddenly seeing them running 18 kilometers as a long run for the first time this weekend, it's a huge inspiration for me, and I'm so grateful and proud to be able to coach them towards their first marathon. So yeah, it's shifting in a way that I'm not focused on running the Boston qualifier attempt as the be all and end all with my training. It's really just because of the squad. So a big shout out to you 2025 squad members if you are watching this. When it comes to the gear that I'll be relying on to get me through both my Melbourne Marathon training but also the marathon itself, finding I'm going to keep pretty much all of my race day apparel the same this year. The only change I've made is to my race day shoes. So going from the New Balance SC Elite V4s to the Puma Nitro Fast R Series 2s. And I know that's a whole mouthful to say and I probably got it wrong. Yeah, they're technically an illegal shoe with a stack height of over 40 millimeters, but I feel like I need every chance possible to hopefully run a Boston qualifier attempt. But as for my shoe rotation, pretty much keeping it the exact same as what I used for my Tokyo Marathon build. The only real swap I will make will probably be my Nimbus 26s starting to reach their end of life, going to use my 27s that I picked up not too long ago to replace them essentially, but they should last me for a majority of the training block. In terms of my wants for my marathon training, the only real change that I'm probably looking to make is when it comes to holding my nutrition for the race as well. Hoping to find a race belt that allows me to hold my gels, but also the potential for a soft flask with a carbohydrate drink mix in it. If you do have any suggestions on running belts that may fit this kind of criteria, please do leave a comment down below. I'd be keen to hear if you've got any suggestions. When it comes to my nutrition, I haven't quite focused on that just yet. Pretty much using a majority of my leftover gels from the previous training block at the moment for training. I do think I will start to work on that as I get back from the Gold Coast though. A fun fact though, moving up to Canberra has seen me pull out both my beanies, gloves, as well as my winter running jackets for almost every run that I'm doing, finding it is below zero for most of my runs in the previous 2 weeks. So in this final section, I thought I'd also share what I've learned having now planned 3 marathon training plans myself, as well as running 4 marathons in total. Firstly is that training plans are just a guide. Now, I say this all the time to squad members and even to newer runners. Training plans are just a guide. You don't need to complete them to an exact T in order to get the desired result of probably just running a marathon as your first goal. And the amount of times I've already changed my Melbourne Marathon training session speaks to this as well. I'm just accepting that I can only control what I can control, and sometimes work, the chaos of life, family commitments, any other commitments will sometimes just take priority. And the last one that I can really think of is to not fix what isn't broken. For me, finding my race day apparel is all working for me. My running shoe rotation is all getting me through my sessions without any real problems popping up. So there's no real necessary need for me to change anything at the moment. The only real one I can think of is continually working on my nutrition strategy for the Melbourne Marathon. Finding if I'm looking to run a Boston qualifier time, I need to have my nutrition nailed, ready to go come race day. So that's a constant experiment and juggling act I'm trying to face myself as a runner. So there we have it, friends. That's where I'm at. 4 weeks into training for Melbourne Marathon, managing niggles, travel, and everything in between that is life. If you're training for something big too, I'd love to hear how it's going. Leave a comment down below and continue the conversation down there. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.